Welcome to the personal side of business,
where you hear real stories from real entrepreneurs.
Hi, and welcome to the personal side of business, where every business has a story. I'm your host, Jet Bandewang. Today, my guest is going to talk about how empathy can play a key role in marketing and business growth. Welcome to the podcast, Jonathan Lowe.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Jet.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So let's start with your story. How did we get here? Because you have a pretty unique story of starting out in a place where it had nothing to do with marketing, and now you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and I always loved technology as a kid. I remember spilling orange juice on my keyboard once and taking it all apart, cleaning it up, and loved seeing the circuit boards and everything, and really resonated with science and math growing up. And so I studied electrical engineering in my undergrad. Interestingly, though, I discovered a little bit through the process of engineering that I love solving problems and the application of technology more than I loved doing the engineering itself. But in any case, I continued on my journey through college, and near the end of my time there, I learned about global poverty issues and, just how 2 billion people in the world lived on less than $2 a day. 20 some million people were modern day slaves. Like, so many of these statistics just really wrecked me, and I felt very compelled to do something about it. So I ended up, after graduating, taking a 1-year fellowship program with a global nonprofit based out of Seattle. And the intent there was to really help raise awareness on college campuses, something I was working on in my senior year, awareness and funds, and just helping wake up the first world to really what's going on more broadly. And so I ended up taking a fellowship program with this nonprofit, loved it, felt so compelled to stay that after my year with them, I asked, how else can I help? And so we found me a role in data analytics because I could deal with numbers. And eventually I ended up taking on a role that I said back in the day, the job that you gave a millennial who had no discernible skills was what? Organic social media marketing. So I took over their Facebook page and Twitter and all of that, and helped grow the page to over 1 million fans, which to this day is a lot, but back then was very significant. And I learned marketing so quick when every single post out there, right? If you don't get 300 to 1,000 engagements within minutes, something's wrong. So that was the beginning of my journey into marketing, and I'm happy to share much more about my path as I dove deeper into that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And question for you, did you get interested in the marketing side? Was it, outside of your goal to really help people, but I felt like that engineering brain was really what drove you, right? Learning those numbers and making it come to use for something else. Was that a driving force in it?
Yeah. So, what's funny is, and thank you for asking, it took me probably over a decade to decide I actually liked marketing, but it served me really well. And I realized why I kept sticking with it, right? Because out of the organic social media piece, I ended up working in product management, helped launch their first mobile optimized website, which has increased mobile acquisitions by over 50%. I ended up managing a multi-million-dollar digital advertising budget. I realized that I love the balance of the art and the science of marketing, right? There's numbers, there's technology, there's all these pieces, automations. And at the same time, there's this creative element of copywriting and imagery and design. And so it turns out even in engineering, that was the part I liked. It's this interesting marriage of being creative for the sake of solving broader problems. And turns out that's exactly what marketing is.
Do you think, coming from, we're going to get into it, more of that human aspect and empathetic side of marketing that you are building your business upon, do you think coming from that side really can never get taken out of the true marketing sense? Like, all this AI automation that we have, all this computerized digital stuff that we carry over into now almost everything we do you think the human side will always need to be there in order for marketing to exist and grow the way you're looking at it now?
Yeah, what's fascinating is I actually think that in the age of AI, marketing is going to be even more necessary, marketing from humans. And the reason I say that is because technology continues to democratize things such as product development. The ability to vibe code a functional application, whether or not you're building pieces on Claude or Lovable these days, whatever it looks like, something you can actually go to market with and provide value and start solving problems, that barrier is reducing over and over again. So, how do you differentiate? Really, it's actually going to be in your marketing and branding. And in fact, related to even something I was very excited for this week was the launch of my debut book, which is called Keeping People Interested. Your ability to keep people interested is always going to need a human element and that human creativity, that person to tie it all together, accelerated by AI, yes, but not replaced by.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a great segue that I was wanting to get to your book. When you're sharing this information, what do you think is the key element in making us different or making a company different when they're marketing and using that human element? What do you think is that key element that either companies are missing out on or they need to improve on in order to bring that to light even more?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking. And I'll even just kind of show your
Oh,
folks here. This book is called Keeping People Interested. And the premise is that it's the only KPI that really matters, right? And so, as an engineer, obviously numbers are incredibly important. But the ability to keep someone interested is the crux of what will help companies be successful or not. And so, you naturally should be asking me, well, how do you keep people interested? The premise of the book and my philosophy is that to keep people interested, you need to be interested in them. And what that means is having empathy for them along every stage of the shopping journey that they're in and constantly providing value, not simply asking over and over again for the sale. I talk about what I call the 97% rule in my book, where so many companies, especially e-commerce companies, are obsessed with their conversion rate. The 2 to 3 or 4%, we'll go with 3% of people who come to the website and buy today. And when you're at a large scale, I ended up working for a $2 billion e-commerce company. Like every basis point, 1/100% difference in conversion rate really did net out to hundreds of $1,000s in revenue for the year. It makes sense why they were focused there. But the premise that of the book and what I've really come to learn and believe through my years experience with multi-billion-dollar organizations, with startups, with grad school, is that you've got to care about the other 97%.
mhm.
That's why it's called the 97% rule. Help people by providing value if they need education or inspiration or a sense of belonging with your brand. I go into all these different strategies and tactics because that's really how companies will end up achieving long term sustainable, profitable growth. It's companies that add value that grow in the long run, companies that chase profitability today and obsess over market share, that don't think about the human that's actually
Yeah.
purchasing your service or product. Those are the folks that will end up not succeeding.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you think that there are enough of these large corporations, especially that ones that are based in the e-commerce space, that are putting weight into this human side of marketing to go really connect with those people? Or do you think there's such a huge machine that they're just looking at numbers and they've gotten away from that?
It's really tricky. The trend that I've seen is with more established publicly traded companies, they have shareholders and they have quarterly targets to hit. And it is very difficult to truly be customer centric in the long run when you have all these pressures of investors or folks who demand profitability and dividends and growth. Now, the trend that I've seen on the flip side is that companies, large ones who are still founder led, are able to take this longer term view because investors have bought into the vision of what they're trying to accomplish in the long run. And those are the companies that are able to say, I don't even care about making money today. I care about adding value and I know I'll make money in the future. Now, there's a tension, of course, right? Because what essentially I was speaking toward will naturally go down toward that, venture capital, seeking the unicorn path. And that's not for everyone. But there are many companies that are just saying, we'll figure out the money thing. We just got to add value. And those are the companies that on the average will be successful.
And I'm assuming the companies that you've worked with, if you go in there and you start to feel and get a sense that they're open-minded to what you're trying to strategize with them, I'm sure that's just like, oh, that's a sigh of relief, right? But then when you go into a company that's like, no, 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 this doesn't really work for us. We're just looking at numbers. That's got to be a higher hurdle for you to get over, right? And I'm sure it it really takes the heads of those companies to really work with you and to change the shape of the way a company is going to start to go after their clients or their customers, and then also see a different vision. How is that conversation for you with them? Can you think in your experience you can get that over a course of like a few months, or sometimes it takes years to change a culture of a corporation?
Yeah, so I'll share a couple of perspectives. To no surprise, the larger an organization is, the more inertia it has and the more time it takes to change direction. Now, as I am a fractional chief marketing officer, and I've got a crew of fractional CMOs under, you know, in our collective called Salt Foundry. And so what I do is I embed myself within teams as their CMO. But the benefit to them is they get my time, a portion of it, because they don't need me for 40 to 80 hours a week, and can pay just a portion of, what a full-time CMO would cost. For sure, what I've seen is that generally fractional CMOs are hired to solve a problem, and that problem is either sales or leads, which turn into sales. In my book, I do walk through kind of the 5 transitions, right, of how to help people move through the different shopping stages. But also there's a chapter 7 where I outlined the practical framework that I use with clients that I've called the SALT framework. SALT being an acronym for strategy, alignment, levers, and traction. And there's a lot of quick, low hanging fruit ways. And so, very practically, when I enter in an organization, there is undoubtedly some low hanging fruit. And whether it is around your brand and messaging, because your website copy was all about you, how long you've been around, how big you are, how big your team is, all about your product features, and not actually about the problems that your customer needs solved. Well, we can make a quick change and usually see a pretty immediate impact on the conversion rate. So
Right.
there's always a balance of, as a responsible business, you do need growth, you do need profitability, but let's make sure that always in the background we are working toward providing more and more value as we leverage the tactics for the near term wins as well.
Yeah, that's great. And there have been, and even guests that have come on my show that I've spoken to that are based in the sales, retail, e-commerce world. I not only does it seem to allow the company to connect with the customer base, I think in a way that you're talking about, where they want to support the business because there's all this emotional connection with it. But I also get this sense that the people that are working there also,
Mhm.
there's this culture, this really good, like, you get to, I've run into some of those people that work in those corporations, and they're just excited there. They have a purpose. They go to work. They enjoy their work, even though it could be just like admin work. They're just like, I'm working for a company that's trying to do something, make a change in the world. So I love this with the marketing you're going after. Are there really like different levels of fits for the marketing that you're strategizing with them, or is it for any type of business this can be applied to?
Yeah. One thing I share as well is, obviously marketing and some of the tactics will change over time, but the premise of marketing and the philosophy and what has worked over and over again, that foundation stays the same. It is, who are you trying to target and what is their need and how can you meet that need and make them be aware that you can meet that need for them. Right. And so this book really can be applied to, this would be great for marketing directors and multi-billion dollar organizations, and also great for startups who are trying to get their head around, hey, where do I even focus first? What
Right.
even is marketing? How do I get this message in front of somebody? And obviously, nothing is all things to all people. The book really is written and targeted toward founders and early stage companies who are in their growth phase. So not super early, but probably
Sure.
in the 1 to 5 scaling to $50 million revenue phase. This will add so much clarity for them. But again, if you're just getting started, you can get a sense of how to do that. If you already are at a very robust, 100-person marketing team, there are plenty of stories and inspiration and tactics that will spark great conversations in your team.
Great. Yeah, I think even if small businesses that are not quite up to where they need to be yet in terms of that, I feel like this is starting to sound like more of a certain high level marketing that it's scaling, right? If I'm correct in that, it sounds like there's this moment where okay, we need to take this to another level, and we're missing out on a couple key elements here in our marketing. This is where we need to go. But I think for those small businesses that are might not be there yet, I would feel like this is a great book for them to read just so they can have a path and vision as to where they're going to go once they get there. And then be able to, one, maybe contact you, be able to talk to you about it. And two, be really to feel like there is this next level. Because I think a lot of small businesses that I've talked to, they see marketing as what you brought before earlier, that it's just these social media, get things out there, Google ads and whatnot, and that's it. And I think we're talking about this. Let's really dive deep into our clientele and start to figure out what they really need and what they want from us, as opposed to just saying we have a product and we're just trying to get the product out there, right? Am I correct in thinking that way?
Yeah, and what you said really speaks to the motivation of why I put this book together in the first place. Is you ask any founder, CEO, or even marketing leader, hey, what books on marketing have you read? I mean, there are so few dedicated marketing books,
Yeah.
and there are some books that like kind of relate to sales or thinking about that territory. And Seth Godin has some great works that I've read and even referenced in the book. Malcolm Gladwell speaks toward this kind of topic, but there isn't just this one holistic way to help think through an entire marketing strategy and all the different pieces that fit into it. I create this framework where I talk about transitions between stages of the shopping journey as an excuse to cover every topic holistically: brand strategy, customer research, retargeting, loyalty and advocacy programs. All of that is packed in here in a very logical manner so you can get your head around the entirety of marketing. A lot of the folks I meet are solopreneurs or smaller business owners who truthfully cannot even afford a fractional CMO, or for whom that is not the right fit. They don't need 5 to 10 hours of strategy every
Yeah.
week, right? And so this is a way to democratize that information for folks.
Yeah. And I think over time, as e-commerce starts to become a part of so many different types of businesses, regardless if they, I almost think like if they want to or not, people are having to figure out how to sell online to get their products out there, whether it be food and beverage, retail, or people who just now selling services. They're like, I'm going to start to figure out a way how to make money online while I'm sleeping. Do you think e-commerce in the next 5 to 10 years is going to look a lot different than it does now from your
Hmm.
experience?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up a chart real quick from my book
Oh, do you already have this
on
in your book ready
something.
to go?
No, there's just something relevant I want to speak to called the value price cost model, the VPC model. And I will just speak to it. So there's something called the VPC model. I just found it. That is not something I came up with, but I put in the book and elaborate on as well. So essentially,
Oh, nice.
at the bottom is your cost. The cost to produce an item or your margin or, COGS if you're selling an item. And then price in the middle, right? The price of the consumer. And in between is your profit margin. Now, the value at the top is the customer's perceived value. And that is a summation of the utility, but also the brand and marketing that you can attach to a product. And so somebody might get $60 worth of utility out of a product that you sell for $50 that you made for $40, right? So you can sell it at $60, right? Because that's theoretically what they'd be willing to pay for the utility of that product. Say it's a kitchen knife or shoes to run a marathon. But what the true differentiator of how you can increase perceived value is your brand, how somebody thinks and identify with the products that you're selling, and the marketing around, well, what is this designed as a shoe for marathoners on purpose because it, is for long distance as opposed to sprinting. That's where you can actually truly increase the perceived value. So again, marketing, whether it's online or wherever it is, there's all these principles. And yeah, absolutely. The mechanisms by which we will engage and shop are going to shift, right? So for example, today in 2020, a lot more people are leveraging chat tools, whether ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, for shopping. And so how do you optimize for those tools to recommend your product? Well, two answers, right? There are certainly different tactics. Yeah, have FAQs. Right, like people are learning. Make
Yeah.
sure you're on multiple different channels. Video is important. Reddit's helpful. FAQs, yes, but also why is that helpful? Because the point is that the content is useful to people. So if you are adding value at whatever channel it is, people are going to value that, and the algorithms will reward you for it.
Yeah. And okay, so you bring up a good point, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but I feel like you're an expert on it, so I would like to. I've been thinking about this for a few months now. As we are using AI for tools for now getting suggestions for this stuff that we buy and the services and the places we want to go eat to, as this is happening over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, do you feel like we are going to be shopping more with the AI first? And then it's sort of like how like AI is pushing us in a certain way? Or do you think the human element of it is going to hold enough value that we're always going to be in control? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Mhm.
I always wonder if over time we get so comfortable and the AI starts to be like, I've got this person. ChatGPT has been, getting a feel for who you are as a person and what you like to do. So we're going to start to throw things out there, and then it starts to guide you to shop a certain way. Whereas
Mhm.
up until maybe, beginning of 2025, we were really, I felt like, in control. If we wanted to look for a red shirt, we went and found a red shirt. But now it could be, I'm guessing maybe in a year, you know, AI is going to be like, you know what, it looks like we might need to update your wardrobe. And you're like, you're right. I'm going to start to shop this certain way. Do you think there is
Yeah.
this persuasive move that AI is going to make us go in a certain way without us really realizing it?
Yeah, I mean, 2 answers come to mind. First is that it's already happening, or it's happened
Okay.
for the last 10 years. With the internet, with algorithms, with the way search, there is this convergence, this information bubble of the things you start engaging with, you will just see more of. Whether that is in shopping or even politics, right? We end up hearing things that are already like us, and it does move to, hey, a few people are interested in this, and the technology pushes and snowballs something. Right. So that's already happening, whether or not the chat like format of tools take over or not. My other answer though is, as I mentioned earlier, this is where marketing and humans will be necessary to differentiate. I do think there will be a split. I think many of us for less important decisions in our lives will be aided by something like AI to just take the burden of decision making away. I don't know about you, but I feel decision fatigue all the time. I think on the flip side, how a brand differentiates is by putting real humans that are authentic, vulnerable, real in front of the brand. That is actually what's going to resonate with ultimately the human who is making the decision. And so a lot of how you're going to keep people interested is by having real humans show up and doing things that the algorithm would never push to begin with.
Yeah. Do you think that we're going to go so far in the AI advertising and speaking even broader to these videos and it's tricky now to tell the difference of what's real, what's not. You almost need a second just to look at something and then make a decision. But
Mhm.
we're going to get thrown all of that stuff in our face for a period of time, and then is it this moment that you're thinking that we're like, okay, we need to come back to real humans because we've had enough of this weird world of non-humans and robots and AI kind of coming at us, and then we want to connect to people again. Is that moment you're thinking it's, or is it already happening, you think, right now in 2026?
I think there's elements already happening for sure. And there's a difference between AI entertainment and the real problems it's solving for people,
Mhm.
right? I have dashboards of data or like raw data you can integrate through APIs and then have AI write reports. And so you're saving hours of being able to ask the right questions and understand data and leverage it in a way that's very useful. And I do think, every next generation is going to keep up with their BS meter. back in the day, our parents' generation, thought when Photoshop came up around that, oh my gosh, how can you even tell what's
Yeah,
real or not? I can guarantee every millennial can tell you if something's photoshopped or not.
yeah,
Now, millennials are freaking out about, oh my gosh, with AI, how can you tell what's real or not? I can guarantee you Gen Z can tell.
yeah,
We're gonna figure it out. We can tell what's authentic.
yeah. When I was looking at everything in your bio and learning about you, I had this question, and I don't know if you've even thought of this, but do you think you would have been looking at marketing in this frame glasses if you didn't go out and try to help the world when you were younger?
That is a great question. What's interesting is I have felt that with each next phase of life, I have had to learn to be more empathetic, not only because it's good for others, but because it's good for me. And I don't know if I didn't do the humanitarian thing at first, or not, how that would have caught up. But
Mhm.
I think folks who, and especially you talk to anyone older, I mean, priorities shift as you get older, and turns out they're usually right. Relationships are more important than achievement, caring about people and how they feel about you versus like what they think about you might be more important. I see that trend in my life as well. Now it's interesting because I did grow up so technology driven, very binary, literally ones and zeros in engineering. For whatever reason, that ended up being less and less compelling with me over time, as opposed to solving real human issues and really paying attention to the person in front of me. And so for sure, I can look at the hypotheticals. I don't know, but for sure, the stories that I learned and wrestled with for years at that nonprofit, hearing about human adversity and overcoming it and achievement and perseverance, and also how people can help and support each other,
Mhm.
how, our efforts here may be the answer to somebody else's prayers. That absolutely had a huge impact on my life and really continued to frame my understanding of how empathy can be and should be applied to all areas of life, including marketing and business.
I love that. I love that answer. I feel like you can get a sense that it was always in you, right? It was just gonna come out in a different way, one or another. These were just what happened in life. Just to wrap up, Jonathan, it was great learning about this, and I hope the businesses can really connect with you to see how this is actually going to connect their business with their clientele. If you could go
Mhm.
back and give yourself some advice when you were younger in your engineer brain to where you are now,
Yeah,
what do you think you
yeah.
would have told yourself back then to maybe one piece of advice that would have changed your life for the better?
It's funny. I just had this conversation with someone in the car about 3 months ago after some alumni event. And I told that person, I wish I cared about psychology more earlier.
Well, So you're so it's interesting because I feel like you're slowly, and maybe 5 years from now we're gonna have another answer that you're gonna have, but I feel like you went from the brain to the heart, and now you're coming back
Mhm.
to the brain. Like there's these pieces of you that are trying to learn more about the body from I want to say from a sort of scientific way, right? You picked apart the brain for
Mhm.
engineering. Now you're trying to get to people to the heart, and now you're doing working marketing, and now you're like, I want to understand people more. You're just you're
Yeah. It's funny. Again, that piece of connecting science and art, I really love frameworks. I have a whole email newsletter on strategic frameworks called the Strategic Frame. I nerd out over it, but really I nerd out over it with the final application of how it affects real people, right?
yeah,
And that is the thing I would, impart on my younger self is care about people, the psychology, both the science and heart elements of it sooner. Understand trends and recognize that one thing is not better or worse. It just is, right? And like serve people.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you, Jonathan. And let's tell everyone where they can find you and also where they can get your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is available on Amazon on paperback and Kindle. So just search Keeping People Interested and it will come up. You can find me at my author site on jonathankalo.com. And also I'm very active on LinkedIn as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. It was a pleasure. Everyone, please check out his book. Also, try to find and get in touch with Jonathan. I think you're going to have a wealth of knowledge that he can share with you. Thank you, Jonathan, for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Jack. Really appreciate it.
This personal side of business.